If you're on that journey of knowing God, and especially if you have any anxieties about the things that you don't know or those things that are just kind of beyond you, I want to encourage you to watch to the end because I'm going to be sharing some really insightful things from one of my favorite authors of all time, G.K. Chesterton. Man, he's blessed my life tremendously, and I really think he can help a lot of people. So I just want to expose more people to his stuff in hopes that they can be helped the same way that I was helped by him. So let's get into it. Now, the title of this video is Poets Don't Go Mad, but Chess Players Do. Now, this phrase is borrowed from G.K. Chesterton's Orthodoxy, and in this book, he's pretty much responding to a critique. You know, he was critiquing other philosophies and that were naturalistic, atheistic, and they pretty much leveled a critique at him and said, well, how about you unpack your own philosophy? And he goes, well, you know what? I think I will. And so he just presents this imaginative approach to how we should orient ourselves towards the world. And I really think it's just really insightful when it comes to how we should approach theological study and some of these bigger questions in life. So we're going to examine a few of these quotes. But first, what's all this business about poets not going mad, but chess players going mad? What does that mean? So think of the poet and the chess player as individuals who approach life differently. They just have different approaches to life. The poet, they're trying to put their finger on reality, right? They're trying to get at real, true, and beautiful things, but they're not trying to define away the thing that they're trying to describe or the thing that they're trying to put their finger on. In some sense, the more they define their terms, their concepts, the less poetic it is, right? The poet is trying to get at reality, but in as few words as possible. And there's just something beautiful about that, right? So think about some of your favorite lines from some of your favorite songs. The artist, the poet, they're trying to put their finger on something that's true, but leaving just enough mystery, just enough ambiguity to call for the imagination. And that call on the imagination is the genius of the poem or the artist. That's what makes us tap our friend and go, did you get that? You know what she meant when she said that, right? It's almost like there's a genius in the fact that they didn't totally define what they were getting at. Why do we find that genius? Why do we like when an artist kind of puts their finger on something true, but yet does it in an indirect way? I think at least in part we like it because we recognize that that truth that they're trying to point out is real, complex, and complicated at times. So anyway, this is the poet. The poet is imaginative. The poet is down for exploration. The poet embraces mystery, but the poet is trying to get at truth. Now, for the chess player, everything is calculated. Now, they can't read their opponent's mind, so there's some mystery there, but where there is mystery, they're trying to destroy it. Why? Because as a chess player, I want to get into my opponent's mind as much as is humanly possible, right? I'm calculating all of my moves. I'm trying to calculate all of their moves. I'm trying to calculate all the best and worst case scenarios of every move in between. All the while, the clock is ticking. And so the stakes are high, and I'm anxious. Why am I anxious? It's not because I'm irrational. It's because the game itself calls for a level of knowledge or rationality that is beyond human capability in a way. So the chess player doesn't want to blunder. If we want to win, we can't move freely. We have to be calculated and precise. So these two very different approaches to answering life's biggest questions kind of set the context for some of G.K. Chesterton's quotes that I'm going to share with you. So let's dive into a couple of them. The general fact is simple. Poetry is sane because it floats easily in an infinite sea. Reason seeks to cross the infinite sea and so make it finite. The result is mental exhaustion. So the poet is out on an adventure, right? They know that the sea is infinite, but they're trying to explore the sea. They know it's a lot out there to understand. So get this idea out of your mind that the poet is just this person who has their head off in the clouds who is not interested in truth. No, the poet is embarked on a journey of discovering things. They're embarked on the journey of discovering the infinite sea, right? But the rationalist, the chess player, the logician, this person is trying to cross the infinite sea. And the reason why they're exhausted is because by definition, the infinite sea cannot be crossed because the sea is infinite, at least in this example. Continuing, he says, to accept everything is an exercise. To understand everything, a strain. The poet only desires exaltation and expansion, a world to stretch himself in. The poet only asks to get his head into the heavens. It is the logician who seeks to get the heavens into his head, and it is his head that splits. This is the genius of this. I just love the wordplay on that. I'm kind of nerding out as I read a few of these quotes because I just love the genius of just the way he wrote. it's just like, man, that's just genius. He just had some pros on him. So what Chesterton is getting at is to accept everything. It is an exercise. It's not easy to accept certain things in life. I mean, there are certain hard truths. There are certain things that are really hard to grasp and even conceptualize in a way, right? To accept everything is an exercise, but to understand everything is a strain. It's just beyond us to understand everything about everything. Now, the poet wants to get their head into the heavens, right? They want to explore. They want to know truth. They want to be reasonable too. They just embrace the fact that they're human. They're limited in scope, and they know that the universe is vast and there's so much more to know about the world, about God, right? They want to get their head into the heavens, though. They want to get at truth. But the logician wants to get the heavens into his head, and it is his head that splits. So there's a difference between embarking on a journey of exploring the infinite, right? The poet is set out on the infinite sea to see what's there. I mean, you got Atlantis over here. Oh man, there's ain't no telling what tribe is over there in that part of the infinite sea, right? And so there's an excitement to it. There's something that draws you in. You know there's more to know about this world, but that can be an exciting thing for the poet. So you can try to get your head into the heavens. We should try to get our heads into the heavens. We should try to explore the world and understand more and know more things while recognizing that we'll never fully understand it all. That can be adventurous. That's peaceful. That's liberating. Like, who knows what you're going to find? Who knows how you're going to be changed and transformed and how you're going to be able to help other people? But for the logician, the name of the game is full comprehension, understanding everything, destroying mystery. Again, the God of the Bible is infinite, right? But we still embark on the journey of knowing him because God has revealed himself through creation and through his word uniquely. Romans 1 teaches that God's eternal power, even his divine nature and his attributes are clearly perceived from creation itself. And it says that even unbelievers see this, that they know God, but that we can suppress the truth sometimes in unrighteousness and kind of blind ourselves from the obvious. Now, hang tight for just a minute because this is going to be one of the longer quotes within this video, but I promise you it's going to be worth it if you listen close. Now, for a little context, G.K. Chesterton is responding to the charge that the religious people, Christians, mystics, they're the kind of people that go crazy, right? They start believing all kind of wild stuff, all kind of crazy stuff. And it's like they just lose their minds, right? They go insane. And so G.K. Chesterton is responding to that charge. And he says, actually, mysticism keeps men sane. As long as you have mystery, you have health. When you destroy mystery, you create morbidity. The ordinary man has always been sane because the ordinary man has always been a mystic. He has permitted the twilight. He has always had one foot in earth and the other in fairyland. He has always left himself free to doubt his gods, but unlike the agnostic of today, free also to believe in them. He has always cared more for truth than for consistency. If he saw two truths that seemed to contradict each other, he would take the two truths and the contradiction along with them. His spiritual sight is stereoscopic. Like his physical sight, he sees two different pictures at once and yet sees all the better for that. Thus, he has always believed that there was such a thing as fate, but such a thing as free will also. So now let's break this down a little bit because that was loaded. So he's saying first, when you destroy mystery, you create morbidity. How does that happen? Okay, so take the naturalist, the atheist, the person who doesn't believe that there's anything beyond the supernatural realm, right? Imagine that person when they hold their child for the first time. I mean, you have some psychos out there. I mean, you have people who are just really cold, but take the average person who holds their newborn for the first time. There's just something otherworldly about that moment, right? Or take, for instance, when you're out at the Grand Canyon and you just feel that, man, there's just more to this world than I know. I don't know it all, but there's more to it. Or take when you're at an orchestra or a Hans Zimmer concert or something crazy like that, right? And you feel transcendence. You just feel like, man, there's more to the world than just the natural world. The person who would have no mystery has to say, well, that's probably just wishful thinking because I can't touch, see, taste what I'm trying to put my finger on. Maybe we just evolved to start liking music, or maybe we just evolved to feel something for our newborns as some sort of survival mechanism. The point is, there's 1,000 different They probably can get better answers than that. But the point is, they have to make that beautiful moment, that glorious moment, something less than what they experienced. They have to make it less real in a way. They have to make it more of a something that just happened. Like, yeah, it's complex and yeah, I can't describe it. But to go from the natural to the supernatural, that's for the crazy people. So when we destroy mystery, we basically become morbid people. And we take the beautiful things in life and we kind of have to flatten them out because, well, if we start believing that there's more to some of these beautiful things, some of these awesome things that we feel, we may have to say that there's a God. Now let's have on that part where it says he always cared more for truth than for consistency. Because if you like me, that kind of thing would give you somewhat of a knee-jerk reaction where you go, hey, hold on. Truth is consistent, and we should strive to be consistent in our thinking. So Chesterton's not trying to say there, look, bump being consistent. It's all about truth. The point is, the mystic always cared more about truth than consistency. Let's try to be consistent as possible. But when we bump up against undeniable realities, for us Christians, that's when we see things clearly taught in Scripture. We can't build doctrines around things just because they don't make sense to us. And so now we have to make a doctrine around this thing that just emotionally sounds better or appeals to be better emotionally. I like the idea of this, or I just feel like that works better in apologetics. No, how about if it's clearly taught in Scripture? Let it be true. Let it be true. Even if you can't connect the dots, trust that God, the only wise God, does connect the dots. It makes sense in his mind, right? There's a peace that comes from that. We can just accept the truth. Now, for an atheist, what that may look like for you is that moment when you held your newborn for the first time, when you heard that song and you felt transcendence at that orchestra concert, right? You knew what that was. You knew that there was something otherworldly about that. You knew when you said I do to your wife, or when you fell in love for the first time, that there was something more to that relationship than just natural, mechanical, biological processes. You knew that in those moments, but when you sat across the table from your coworker, all of a sudden it was contestable. Why? Because now we're talking about ideas. Now we're trying to be consistent. Now we're trying to win the debate. But take yourself back to those moments where truth was undeniable. You knew what it was. You couldn't explain it, right? But you knew, no, it is true. There's something more to what I feel for this person that I'm in love with. There's something more than biology and mechanical, naturalistic processes. There's something more to what I feel for my son, my daughter, my parents. There's something more than just this sort of like biological built-in loyalty. Just lean into that. Let it be true. And I think this is one way in which we suppress the truth. When the Bible says that we suppress the truth in our righteousness, I think this is one way in which we do it, is that we take undeniable truths, things that are clearly just intuitively true in reality, but all of a sudden we have to make sense of it. Or we're trying to be consistent as atheists or naturalists, people who don't believe that there's a God or more to the natural world. And for the sake of being consistent, we have to take those very obvious things, those very obvious truths about life, and all of a sudden they're contestable. Now we're going to keep examining some of these quotes, but I just want to make this clear if this hasn't been made clear already. Chesterton is not saying, hey, everybody should be mystics. Chesterton is responding to this idea that religious people who believe in the supernatural, are the people that go crazy. And so Chesterton is saying, no, actually, the mystic has always been the same one. And so by mystic, he's referring to that person. Mystic is almost like a stand-in term for people who just believe in the supernatural and are okay with some of the things that they can't make sense of because they just embrace the fact that there is more to the natural world. And so I just want to put that caveat on there because this next quote mentions mysticism again. And I know sometimes Christians can have a knee-jerk reaction to that, like, oh, it's pagan idolatry and demonic and all this kind of stuff. So again, Chesterton's not saying, hey, you guys should be mystics. He's just saying that there's something about that approach to reality as it relates to just being able to be okay with mystery and be okay with trying to be consistent too, but recognizing that we won't always be consistent. There's just something right about embracing that tension there. So continuing, he says, the whole secret of mysticism is this, that man can understand everything by the help of what he does not understand. The morbid logician seeks to make everything lucid and succeeds in making everything mysterious. The mystic allows one thing to be mysterious and everything else becomes lucid. Try to understand the genius of this. As a Christian, right? I can just accept God is beyond me. I cannot fully comprehend God, but I trust him. I believe in him. I put my hope in him, and I'm going to see all of reality through him. So I'm allowing that one thing in my life to be mysterious. Yes, I don't fully comprehend God, but if I would just let him be who he is, if I would just let him be the absolute one, the incomprehensible one, everything else will make sense. If I think his thoughts after him, everything will make sense in life. I don't have to deny that feeling of transcendence that I felt when I heard that beautiful music, when I went to the cathedral, or when I went to the play, or when I experienced this strange joy and longing when I saw the happy ending, or that scene that was just full of hope in that movie. I could just embrace those moments because I recognize they're pointing to a bigger story, a truer story that is found in God and what he's accomplished through his son, Jesus Christ, in redeeming the world and reconciling the world to himself. Again, let's take these obviously otherworldly encounters, experiences that we have when we visit some of the great wonders of the world, or even at our homes when we're just reflecting on our loved ones, and man, like just the beauty of life, music, longing, the desires that we have for unity, peace, meaning, morality, all these things that really point to the fact that we are more than our biology. We are more than matter, right? And these things are so obviously, so intuitively true, right? But because we have to be consistent, again, the logician cares more about consistency than truth. Because we have to be consistent, we have to say, well, I'm not so sure that God exists. And if I'm not sure that God exists, if I'm not sure that there's anything beyond the natural world, then I have to reduce these transcendent experiences and moments I have to something other than what my intuition even knows it to be, right? I have to make it less than what it is for the sake of being consistent. And so now we take the obvious and make it mysterious. And this happens all the time. Have you ever watched those debates, like the naturalist atheist who doesn't believe in free will at all? And a person may ask them something like, I don't know. Like, I feel like when you got up this morning and you went to brush your teeth, that, I mean, what are your thought process? What are you thinking? And they go, well, yeah, I suppose it kind of feels like free will, but that feeling is an illusion, like we're it's 100% nature versus nurture. And we're just kind of locked in. And then a person responds like, yeah, but I mean, what did you feel when you fell in love with your girlfriend, with your wife? Like, what did you feel when, your kids graduated, or they looked at you and held you in their arms and said they love you for the first time? What did you feel? Like, do you not feel that something's voluntary and uniquely beyond matter? Like, I mean, did you choose? You really think that you just were determined to choose your wife? That there was no choice in that? And they go, well, yeah, as human creatures, we're biologically wired for compassion and affection. Some answer like that, right? And it's like, that sounds logically consistent and sound and all that good stuff. But I just don't think you believe it. I think that you've made the clear mysterious, right? Because you won't allow anything to be mysterious. And you can't grant that there's something beyond this world because that doesn't make sense to you yet. But because that doesn't make sense to you yet, there are things that seem to point to that conclusion that you can't have point to that conclusion. And so you basically have to make the obvious mysterious. This is the life of the chess player, the person who approaches the world in this rationalistic way. Again, there's nothing wrong with being rational. On this channel, we will be rational, and theology should be rational because God is truth. He's the ground of all rationality, in my view. But the point is, as human beings, we're striving to be God, to see from all angles, right? To kind of have this absolute transcendent point of reference about everything in life. And as atheists, you want to do that before you believe in God, as if that's possible? And you don't think there's going to be consequences from thinking like that, from approaching life like that? There's going to be so many things that are true, good, beautiful, that you're going to have to rewire, rework for the sake of being consistent. Again, you care more for consistency than for truth. And this is the tension between the two, is that we want to pursue truth, but at the same time, we have to be okay with knowing that it's possible that the dots really are connected, but that we can't connect the dots. That's okay, right? So choose the poet's path. It's okay to go on the adventure, to say, man, I know the sea is infinite and I may not even understand it all in this lifetime, but there's so much to understand. And I'm just embarked on that journey. All that to say, let's rethink how we approach theological study. Let's rethink how we approach understanding the world. We need to embrace mystery. We are finite human beings. We cannot understand it all. There is a lot to be understood, though. That's the reason why I created this channel. I think there's so much that we can learn about Christ, about God, about the gospel, about all things related to God. So my appeal is this. Let's reject rationalism. Let's not reject the rational. Let's be rational. And I think Christians should care more about being rational than most Christians are. But let's not embrace this idea that reason is ultimate, that what we can't make sense of is not true. Let's rather accept that some things we can't make sense of, even though we know it's true. This keeps us sane. There are some things that we just know to be true, just because we know to be true. I'm not saying that's a proof. Obviously, something isn't true just because you know it. But I'm saying, even in your own subjective experience, there are things that you've encountered in life. There's experiences that you have that you know are true, even though you can't make sense of them. And that's okay, because reality is complex. And there's so much more to who God is and even the world that he's created. I mean, there's so much to explore. Why not choose the path of the poet? Why not set out on the infinite sea in hopes that you're going to find truth? You're going to discover a lot of things. You're going to meet people. And there's a beauty in that. There's an adventure in that. So my appeal is both to the theologian and to the skeptic. To the theologian, I want to say we need to embrace mystery, because there are certain things in Scripture that really are hard to connect the dots on. And I'm one of those good old-fashioned Christians that doesn't believe that the Bible contradicts itself. I believe that the Bible is God's infallible word, and I think it's true in all that it teaches for salvation, for doctrine, and to the edification of believers. But at the same time, there are certain things that I see in there. I'm just like, you know what? I don't fully understand that one yet. And that's okay to be, because there's so much more to be understood. And I just accept that some things are beyond me. It even says that his thoughts are not my thoughts and his ways are not my ways. It's liberating just to embrace that fact. I mean, I have more on my plate to learn than I'll be able to finish in this lifetime. So I'm okay. I still can fill my cup. That's exciting to me. Let's go on that journey. Let's explore doctrine. Let's dive deep into it. But let's approach it in humility, allowing God, to be in some ways mysterious to us. That can really be a springboard for worship. To skeptics, I just want to say, particularly to those who have kind of been on the fence, who maybe have heard some of the arguments for God's existence, and you kind of like, there's just this thing, that thing, and I just don't know. I just want you to reflect on some of those moments that I mentioned in your life. I know I didn't, call out every experience that a human being can have, but I'm just trusting that you've had certain things happen in your life, or there's even certain aspects of your life where you long for or even feel transcendence in some way. You know there's something more to this world, even though you can't quite make sense of it. I want to encourage you, give God a try. Give Jesus a try. Really allow him to be mysterious, even as he gives you understanding. If you allow that one thing to be mysterious, everything else will become lucid. That's my invitation to you. You don't have to go on making everything mysterious and approaching life like a chess player who feels as though the stakes are too high to make a move because you might blunder. As a Christian, I may blunder, but that's okay, because I know my steps are being ordered by God. I know he's given me his spirit to lead and direct me into all truth. And so it's in that vein that I approach theological study. It's in that vein that I invite people to like, comment, subscribe to this channel and explore more about Christian theology. Let's embark on the infinite sea. And who knows what we may find as we embark on that journey. For those of y'all who stayed to the end, I really appreciate it. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know how y'all feel. Let me know if there's anything that maybe you found hard to understand, or even something that you disagree with. Pushback is fine. Let's work together as we tackle some of these more complex things. But till next time, grace and peace. Soli Deo Gloria. Y'all be blessed.